The world is cruel. The only thing human beings are equal in is death, and pain is the only sensation they feel when confronted with this absolute truth. They struggle, they hide from reality, and they dream. They become slaves to their dreams. Is there a way out, an escape? Can one escape the cruel world, the forest, and experience true peace? The divine feeling of power, authority, and God itself. Does such a power exist in such a cruel world? Does such a power solve everyone's problems? Will humanity become great again, or will it fall further into the abyss of despair? The answer to that question is a disappointing no, it does not. That kind of power is a mere dream, a delusion designed to manipulate the weak, to create a false hope, a false hero. Anyone who believes in such a delusion is hopeless, and unfortunately, many do. But one man looked past that delusion and saw the truth. Not just a truth, but the truth of humanity. That man was Kenny Ackerman, one of the only people in early Attack on Titan who died knowing the truth. This character has captivated me and sparked my imagination ever since I first saw him ambush Levi in the Uprising arc of the Attack on Titan anime. Since then, I've read the manga, joined various Attack on Titan communities, and gained more of an understanding of the story's themes and philosophies thanks to the friends I've made on my journey throughout the fandom. Shout out to you, Beluga. So, now that I would consider myself to have a decent understanding of the story, who is Kenny Ackerman? Why does he connect with Uri Reiss? Why was he born into this world? And in the end, why did Isayama choose to give him one of the most thematically rich and important chapters to the greater narrative of Attack on Titan? Well, let's find out. Violence. That was all Kenny knew as a child. His family was hunted down by the very government that swore to protect them, and so as he learned and grew in his youth, he saw murder, pain, and death surround the world and realized what had to be done to survive, for survival was the only dream he could really hope to make a reality. Eventually, he became drunk on the power to kill. It made him feel something. It awakened something within him, the primal urge to destroy, to project his own internal suffering onto others, to personify humanity's malice and hatred itself, by doing the thing he couldn't ever do to himself: kill. Every throat he slit, every life he took, just made him more hungry for the one thing that could give his life meaning: power. The sensation of authority over life and death. The knife in Kenny's hand was his and his alone. Nobody else could use it, and that is what made him happy. He was the Ripper, the demon of the underground, a dark shadow amongst the equally as dark shadows. The reason he was born into this world was to inflict violence. So when he heard that he could become more powerful, he went for it, for he believed it was why he was born into this world. Unfortunately, when he tried to kill the holder of this magnificent power, it was made clear just how insignificant Kenny was in the grand scheme of things when faced with someone more powerful than him. He was almost destroyed, crushed in a giant hand. His miserable life was almost taken. Kenny's worldview, the view that life and death was dictated by who had more control, who had more power, made it clear to him that he wasn't going to make it out of this alive. So he tried to deny death and bargain for his life, already knowing the hypocrisy in the words he spoke. He finally understood the futility of living this way, taking lives and begging for one's own. How pathetic. However, the man who had complete control over his life didn't kill him. Instead, he just said sorry. Sorry that a boy who should have been protected by the very government who had swore to protect the people of the walls didn't treat his family the same way. This man had all the power in the world, the power of God, the power to save all of humanity. What need did he have for trash like Kenny? Obviously none, and yet he still begged for forgiveness from Kenny. The expression on the young Kenny's face says it all. He doesn't understand why such a powerful man would do this. Was power the only way to escape the cruel world? Did it truly give his life meaning? Or was there something else? Something else that this man, Uri Reiss, the literal most powerful man on earth, before him saw? Alas, Kenny never knew the answers to those questions until the very end, but he died satisfied knowing the truth that Uri and Frida preached to all their subjects. The absolute truth of humanity was finally shown to Kenny in the young boy he found rotting away in his sister's room all those years ago. A miserable brat destined to become the same as him. Kenny saw himself in the boy, the same frustration, the same passion and desire to cement his place in this world, and decided to train him in the art of violence. And so, when he had finally trained Levi to survive as he once learned himself, he left without so much as a final goodbye to his mentee, leaving the boy to traverse the cruel world by himself, discover himself, and cement his place in this world separate from the place of Kenny. And he did indeed see everything the world had to offer, all the death and pain, all the suffering surrounding humanity. These experiences created the Levi we know today, but he isn't truly that cynical. Levi is always seen as a cold and ruthless killing machine by both his peers and this fandom, but I think we take the little moments of empathy we see from him for granted.
お前は十分に活躍した。そして、これからもだ。お前の残した意志が、俺に力を与える。約束しよう。俺は必ず、巨人を絶滅させる。
Levi is not emotionless. He is the kindest, most loyal, and most human character in Attack on Titan. He is what Kenny desperately wanted to become. Levi endured so much and yet kept moving forward. He never gave up. He dreamt. He had no regrets. Kenny's true desire wasn't to become the most powerful in the world. He just wanted connection, friends, the most fundamental desire in the human psyche. He just wanted someone, anyone, to understand him, the pain, the self-loathing, and the hole left in his heart that could only be filled by the satisfaction of reflecting that pain onto others. He believed the only way to fulfill his desperate subconscious wish was to become the most powerful man around. That is the logic he used when Sanas asked him why he was so loyal to Uri. He was just the most powerful. However, power doesn't make someone worthy of following. Levi was the most powerful, but people weren't drawn to him because of that. They admired and respected him for the kindness he showed to his fellow soldiers, the love he had in his heart for all of them. He carried every soul that lost its life with him into battle, so that their heart could mean something. Deep down, Kenny knew he could not be this boy's father, because this boy had the potential to become a better person than he was. He was already special, not because of his power, but because he was born into this world, free to choose the life he wanted to lead. The life of a fighter against the cruel world, against the forest. Kenny thought that he was too far gone to come back from the abyss that was created in his heart from the moment he was born. And so, he mercifully let Levi, his pride and joy as he says in the manga, go to do what he could not, achieve ultimate freedom. In the end though, even when Kenny thought it was too late for him, he died free. The truth he realized was that true freedom was what Uri showed in their very first meeting. Understanding and empathy, the ability to escape the forest of hatred. When faced with an enemy trying to assassinate him, Uri had no hatred in his heart. He only understood why Kenny was trying to do this. He just wanted to feel something, anything at all, and the only time he ever felt anything was when he killed others, and proved to himself his superiority over the weak. Uri knew what Kenny needed was a friend, not power, not God, just a friend, a brother, a guide, a soulmate, and he became just that for Kenny. Uri understood who Kenny truly was on the inside. Uri's only reason to live was to make others happy, bring meaning to their lives. He became the founder in order to save humanity. He spared Kenny in order to help him become the man he always wanted to be. Someone empathetic. And yet he failed, dying before Kenny could truly understand his philosophy. But does that make Kenny and Uri's relationship a failure? Does that mean Uri never taught Kenny anything of value? No. Kenny realized the value of life only at the end of his spiritual journey, when faced with Levi, the only positive force in Kenny's life other than himself. Uri's words by that lake resonated with him finally, when before he thought Uri's worldview was all nonsense. He now knew that it embodied what makes human beings special. We are born into this world. We are faced with challenges, impossible challenges. The world is cruel, it is dark, it is built upon the foundation of violence and death, and the only way to live is to fight. But Uri still saw beauty in the chaos of the cruel world. He watched the beautiful lake and took it in. This was the world he wanted. Paradise. It was impossible to create this ideal world. That was undeniable to him, but he still believed in what happened that day. A serial killer and a pacifist became lifelong friends. Why was that? What formed that connection? It was kindness, understanding, and empathy. And those things are what make humanity, despite its endless atrocities, beautiful.
暴力か知らねえよ。ただお前にバカでかい腕でつまみ上げられなければ、俺はお前の頭にクソを詰め込んでただろうな。それこそ友人手荒になる前によ。
ああ、避けがたい真実だ。それでも私はあの時の奇跡を信じている。
The world never ceases to be cruel, but that doesn't mean we must embrace it. We just need to keep moving forward and escape that forest. Even in death, the forest is escapable. Levi escaped it, and Kenny did by the end, by doing what was right instead of what was easy. He gave the serum that gives life and death to the man that has experienced constant death in his life. He realized that power didn't make him happy. He just wanted to be with Uri, be his friend, understand him, and be the man he always wanted to be. Someone special, someone truly capable of changing the world. And so he helped Levi in his final moments by ensuring he could change the world. Kenny Ackerman died a human, not a demon, not a monster, just a human being. A special human being who had finally escaped the forest. The world is cruel, but it is also very beautiful. Years later, two people with that very same philosophy defeated the demon, the man Kenny was for most of his life, by simply taking in the beautiful sights of the world and talking to their enemies, understanding them and empathizing with them because of their shared hope for humanity. With their efforts, peace was achieved, if for a short while, because that is all they needed. Hope. No matter how cruel this world is, no matter how hard it becomes to see past the horizon of death and pain, you must endure, accept the truth, and keep moving forward. Not until your enemies are destroyed, but until you make sure no enemies are created. That is the truth of humanity. That is the truth that the Jaegerists refuse to believe in. Did their circumstances make it so having hope was difficult and foolish? Yes, But Armin, Hanji, and everyone else also experienced that same pain the Jaegerists did, and yet they still held on to their beliefs until the bitter end. Levi never gave up on the value he has for life itself. Armin never let go of the beautiful sights he has seen throughout his life. And in the end, even Eren accepted that only the hopeful and optimistic Armin could find meaning in this cruel world, just as Kenny accepted that only someone like Uri could save humanity. Thank you guys for watching. I didn't really dive into the parallels between the Kenny-Uri dynamic and the Eren-Armin dynamic, but I touched on it a bit at the end at least. I have a lot of love and passion for these two characters in particular, so be sure to support this video by sharing it with others, liking, commenting, and subscribing. That's all I have for now, and until next time, this has been Quick Binger.
俺が見てきた奴らみんなそうだった。酒だったり女だったり神様だったりもする。一族、王様、夢、子供、力。みんな何かに酔っ払ってねえとやってられなかったんだな。みんな何かの奴隷だった。あいつでさえも。